Hello everybody, this is Dr. Biba Singh and I'm here today with Rhythm of Healing on Just Punjabi. मेरा जो आज दा guest हैगा, आज मैं एक topic ते उत्ते गल करांगी which is like special to all of us, weddings. Yes, weddings. So विआह, शादी, गाने, रचाने, सब कुछ सारे culture which एक बहुत ही integral part है सारी culture दा. And today's guest is someone who runs a show for this. So today I have Vaishali Deshpande. Vaishali has been doing South Asian and interfaith weddings for almost 2 decades. Yes, she is a veteran in the South Asian wedding industry. She has done hundreds of weddings in the New York and New Jersey area, as well as traveled overseas to multiple international sites also. She founded Rose Events back in 2001 and recently has started her own company, Events by Vaishali. She's been featured in countless magazines, TV shows such as Platinum Weddings, and done a lot of crazy stuff. Amazing stuff. Let's welcome Vaishali. Hi Vaishali, welcome to our show.
Hi Biba, thank you so much for having me.
We're so excited to talk to you because to see enna kuch wedding industry which kita hua hai, so it's just really cool. I just want to hear all about your journey. So firstly Vaishali, you're an entrepreneur. Yes. You know, ਤੁਸੀਂ 2001 ਵਿੱਚ ਆਪਣੀ Rose Events ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕੀਤੀ ਸੀ company, and I just want to know, like, how were you inspired to do this? What was your journey like? How did you come to do this?
So as I was, really into organizing and planning events when I was younger in high school and college, I just had a passion for it that naturally developed, even though I was a science major most of my life and through college, and had the opportunity to kind of change direction at one point. And at that time, I realized like this is something that I really love to do, more than the science, path I was on. And so I felt like it was very necessary, especially in the Indian community. A lot of South Asian events always run late. Yes. Everything's disorganized. Yes. And growing up, I saw that all the time.
Indian Standard Time.
Indian Standard Time. Yes. And so I felt the need to, come in and see if there's an opportunity to kind of help these events, weddings, and get them up to speed in terms of everyone being on time, especially because South Asians at that time were spending so much on money. We were inviting so many guests.
Right.
And it's a, really important part of, doing an event is that everything does take place on time and goes seamlessly. And so I was able to find a perfect niche, going, vendor to vendor, walking down Oak Tree Road in Edison, and realizing how many people were really a part of this community. I had no idea. So our first venture was actually doing South Asian bridal shows. And by doing the shows, we were actually able to bring everyone into one platform where brides and grooms could come with their families and actually realize that there are this many wedding decorators, this many photographers, and, kind of expanding upon the industry and what's all needed with weddings.
So like you actually participated or did these shows, or how did it work?
So we were actually the ones who created the show. So we put, we would rent out exhibit centers, invite vendors to attend, put booths for everyone. Everyone had to come up with sales marketing material to, of course, get bride and grooms to select their services, and pretty much put everyone at equal levels, as opposed to having to maybe sort through some information that might have been on the internet, or having to just refer to previous friends and family who've gotten married. So this was a nice way to kind of see really what's in the market, who's in the market, and then pick the right service for your own wedding.
Very nice. It always is amazing to me when a woman starts her own business, or anyone starts their own business, because mainu yaad hai, because we've been friends for many, many years. Mainu yaad hai, I was in college and we were like, in our 18, 19, 20, and while a bunch of us were studying medicine and going the science route, ਅਸੀਂ medical school ਚ ਪੜ੍ਹਾਈਆਂ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਸੀ, and everyone was like, Vaishali is starting a wedding business. And we were like, wow, because desi parents हमेशा कहते हैं scientist बनो, engineer बनो, doctor बनो, engineer बनो, lawyer बनो, and you took this step. No, I want to do my own business. And today it's a very successful business, and we're so proud of you. How did you face that barrier? Because I'm sure your family, your friends must have said, like, how are you going to do this?
It's a great question and very integral with the South Asian community and how our parents think. My parents were not happy when I dropped out of the science program I was in, and they were upset for a while and wanted to just kind of see that there was some sort of direction. Where is all this going? What are you really planning to do? And at that time it was hard because there wasn't such a community, and weddings weren't the way that they are today, which is a huge industry. But initially, the first month or two, I had to sort of convince them that this is a good direction. There's a lot of potential. Just trust me on this. And fortunately, I was very blessed to have parents who were willing to be understanding and kind of waiting to see sort of what develops, and had my back and had the support. And my entire family always supported me when we started doing the shows and came and helped and saw everything in real time. And then they started believing that, hey, like she's onto something.
So it's true. If you have a vision and you have a belief and you have positive energy, you can really do anything you put your mind to.
Absolutely. And surrounding yourself with those positive people, having that support system is really important. It helps really drive through your vision and get to your goal faster.
So you're an inspiration, really. That's awesome. How do you coordinate with all the different vendors? So because we're talking about weddings, I mean, there's so much involved from Mehndi, Gane, Kana. I mean, I'm probably missing outfits, designers, lighting. I mean, how do you do it all? Tell us about it. Tell us, how does it work?
So it's, I like to say it's pretty simple, but it is quite complex, and there are a lot of different factors that get, involved in the process. But my brain is I'm very OCD as a person, type A, a little bit controlling at times, but it's necessary when doing, South Asian weddings. But it's, easy to do when you compartmentalize everything and create a timeline. And so we know, when we're planning weddings with our clients that, there's a certain amount of activity that needs to be done in certain stages. And once that's done, you finish the first part. Of course, you need a venue, you need your vendors. And then you don't worry about the details until you really get to those parts. So keeping things organized with my clients, and kind of developing the strategy needed as each part comes up, keeps everyone, somewhat tied to the process. And also it's a bit more seamless and less stress in doing the weddings.
So agar koi bride or groom nu nahi pata, they come to you and they say ke events by Vaishali tusi dasso, food, makeup, hair, because there's so many people out there. And this is another thing I love about my show here, Rhythm of Healing. I love to bring people on to tell us about themselves: makeup artists, restaurants, mehndi artists, singers, dancers, everything. So when a client comes to you and says, I want this, how do you know, what, if they don't know what makeup artist is good for me, or what colors sometimes brides know or grooms know everything they want, and sometimes they have no idea where to start. How do you guide them?
So,
and how do you pick the vendors?
Oh, of course. So any vendor I work with, they are a reputable service. They have a quality product, and I think working with people who have good temperament, have good personalities, work well with, in these circumstances. Because remember, it's not just you're showing up to a shoot. It's actually 500 people, multi-days, long days. These are people you're seeing sometimes first thing in the morning at the crack of dawn. So you want to make sure that these are, vendors that have been, tried and true and remain, in great temperament throughout the wedding process, and provide a quality product. So that's usually the vendors that I work with. As far as actually, working with the clients, trying to figure things out. A lot of people do get very overwhelmed with weddings. Especially nowadays, there's so much out there, whether it's Pinterest, Instagram, wedding websites, and everyone, every bride that comes in is oh, I know this wedding, I know that wedding. I've seen, all their videos, and they think they know what they want, which is great. I try to get them to start a vision and really work through some of the early things that need to be decided, everything from guest lists, the type of vision they have for their wedding, whether it's rustic or elegance, and kind of work with them in finding out really what's important to them. And once I kind of figure that out, then I try to steer them in that direction based on not just the vision of the wedding, but also their budget, which indicates a lot as well.
Budget is because weddings are so expensive.
Oh yeah, they can be very expensive.
Yeah.
But as I'm working with the clients, I get to know their personalities a bit more.
Okay.
And so I almost try to, it's sort of like matchmaking, instead of looking for like a bride and a groom, now I'm trying to match the bride and groom to their vendors.
So can we have a show with you, like this new show on Netflix, Seema Auntie?
Indian matchmaking.
Indian matchmaking. We should have like the second part of it when they actually do the wedding. Events by Vaishali.
Yes, definitely. I'd love to do this. I love matchmaking.
Yeah.
I'm guilty. I'm officially an auntie now, where I try to go to these weddings, and even though I'm working, I try to see, are there single groomsmen, single bridesmaids?
So I'm gonna need to talk to Just Punjabi. We're gonna have to have an Events by Vaishali matchmaking show because hey, that one is really cool. Like people are loving it. So
oh yeah,
that's so funny. So the other thing, like I know that you've done weddings, platinum weddings that have been featured on TV, and I know you sent me some clips. So I'm just like amazed that. So beautiful. So tell me one thing. You've done so many big weddings, like I said, platinum weddings. You've done little, big, every budget, every range, every kind of thing. Do you have a favorite wedding? Like ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕੋਈ ਸ਼ਾਦੀ ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੀ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ ਜੋ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਸਪੈਸ਼ਲ ਸੀ, favorite ਤੁਹਾਡੀ?
So I've done so many weddings, and I have so many favorite weddings, so many favorite couples and families that I've worked with. But there is one wedding that consistently through the years has always stuck out in my mind. And this was many, many years ago. I want to say maybe 18, 19 years back now. Very
That's
early on.
a long time ago.
And it was in a Gujarati bride, and she was marrying an American guy, and in those days it was still sort of taboo to marry outside of the culture.
Right. So koi American nal matlab gore nal Indian kudi vyah kara rahi hai. So of course it's like Indian parents are like
yeah, there's a little bit of shock, apprehension.
Right.
And so as the wedding was progressing, the bride's father said, I'm not on board with this. I'm not going to come to the wedding. I don't approve of this.
Really?
Yes. So what ended up happening, we continued planning. Of course, for the bride, it was very emotional that her dad wasn't going to come to her wedding, wasn't going to walk her down the aisle, wasn't going to do kanyadan, which is just super important. Yeah, he wouldn't talk to anyone, any of the vendors. There was family members couldn't even convince him.
I want to hear what happened at this wedding, but after a short break. Welcome back to our special episode with Vaishali, Events by Vaishali, who does weddings, and she does everything from like A to Z on weddings. So asi gal kar rahe si on Vaishali's most memorable or wedding in her mind, and Vaishali ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੱਸ ਰਹੇ ਸੀ ਕਿ there was a wedding where Indian girl ਨੇ ਗੋਰੇ ਨਾਲ ਵਿਆਹ ਕੀਤਾ and ਉਹਦੇ dad ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਮੈਂ ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਸ਼ਾਦੀ ਤੇ ਆਣਾ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ. So you were telling us the story that it stuck in your mind. So tell us what happened, because you're telling us about it. So
absolutely, and it was a beautiful wedding out in western Pennsylvania on a horse farm, scenic, and the entire groom's side of the family, which was they were American, and
did anybody come from the girl's side?
So there were a lot of guests that came from the girl's side. And her mom did reluctantly also come towards the end, which is great, and it was really special when we had those moments with her and the bride earlier in the day. But as the barat was starting, I was with the bride in her room, and she just started crying, and she was like, I just can't believe still, like he's not here, he's not going to be here for my big day, and became so emotional. And so I remember I had walked outside, and I was like, let me just, check on, the barat and see what's going on. And all of a sudden, through the barat, I see like this one Indian person, this man coming through with all the other American people, and I'm thinking like, who could that possibly be in my mind? And suddenly I realized it's her dad. He had not only showed up on the wedding day, didn't tell anyone, just showed up, and he came dancing with the barat and gave her away.
And
I was like a big baby crying in the back room.
My God.
I couldn't believe it. She was just like utterly happy.
Finally agreed.
Yes.
Oh, that's really nice. See, I feel like देखो साढ़े बच्चे असी गल कर रहे हैं विआह दे बारे weddings दे बारे and असी अगर अपने बच्चों ਨੂੰ अमेरिका विच लेके आए हैं raise कर रहे हैं इत्थे और of course असी अपनी culture चाहने हैं असी भी चाहने हैं कि साढ़े बच्चे Indian लोकां नाल विआह करन but अगर मतलब end of the day वो नहीं मान रहे उन्होंने किसी होर ਨੂੰ चुनिया है कोई Indian नहीं है कोई भी होर culture ਦਾ ਬੰਦਾ है race color religion whatever ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਆਪਣੇ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਤਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਪਿਆਰ ਕਰਦੇ ਹੀ ਹੋ ਨਾ ਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ I feel parents should accept it, you know?
Yes.
I think it's so sad when kids have to struggle with that, you know?
Absolutely. And I mean, there's of course going to be that vetting process. You want to make sure that, you know, the person in, you know, your son or daughter's life is going to treat them well and take care of them, you know, through tough times. But I mean, other than that, you know, it shouldn't matter.
Right. I mean, you know, I understand, you know, parents want the best for their children, right?
Absolutely.
But sometimes it doesn't have to be just this that is best, right?
Yes.
So sometimes having an open mind is very important. So another question, Vaishali, how do you do it when you manage mixed weddings, like different cultures or religions? Like kadi kadi koi Sikh or Hindu wedding hai, Punjabi wedding hai, Gujarati wedding hai, or American and like Indian and non-Indian. Like, how do you do all that? Because it's like a lot of different, you know?
Absolutely. There's a lot of moving parts in the process when you come to multicultural weddings. And the biggest component is really working with the priests and the families to provide a structure that makes both ceremonies seem a bit seamless and easy to understand for the guests that are different on each side. A lot of times people come to Hindu weddings or Sikh weddings and they just don't know what's going on. So having that narrated through a program in the ceremony is very helpful so people understand the steps, why you're doing these steps. And the same goes for when we do Catholic Jewish weddings with the Indian weddings, and just provide a little bit more understanding of what's actually happening, what the culture, you know, says, both in, you know, the religious sense. And a lot of times having these conversations early on and combining those meetings with both priests, you know, the priests get to collaborate too, which is really nice.
Very
because
nice.
A lot of them believe, you know, in the sanctity of marriage. They're on, you know, the same moral values. There's really no difference when it comes to all these major religions when it comes to love. And so they try to seamlessly, you know, blend the two ceremonies together and are very respectful with each other. And when that's the case, then the families also become very respectful and careful of making sure that each party gets, you know, what they want through the ceremony, and which makes for a really nice wedding day for both the couple as well as the guests.
I'm going to ask you a really off-the-cuff question.
Sure.
One that I didn't plan on asking, but it just came up into my mind. You've done so many weddings, over hundreds of weddings, and now like the rate of divorce is so high. How many of your weddings, they weren't because of you, that's like, how many now, because you said 18, 19 years, right? How many of those weddings have been successful, and how many have ended up in divorce, and do any of them really make you sad because you remember such a beautiful wedding and then years later you're like, oh, they're not together anymore? Have you had that happen ever?
I have, unfortunately, and every couple that gets divorced makes me sad.
Of course.
But my first one was this couple. It was super Bollywood couple, and they were, you know, their parents, their fathers ended up being old medical school mates from India, and they didn't even know that. They ended up meeting
what kind of Punjabi or
Punjabi? Yeah, Punjabi family. And I remember their wedding being so beautiful and amazing and luxurious.
So you definitely thought this was going to last.
And I thought there were like no two people better suited for each other than this couple.
God.
I mean, their families, everyone just assimilated so well. And then I found out a couple of years later that they were indeed divorced because I was actually working on their photo album, which they hadn't done. And then, you know, the mom called me and told me not to do it.
So what was the reason? Did you find out?
I never found out what the reason was, unfortunately.
That would have been interesting.
Yeah.
Like,
it was, yeah, unfortunate. But I heard one of them moved to South America, and, you know, it was, yeah, it just didn't work out. But that definitely broke my heart. But it is, unfortunately, you know, what is happening nowadays, and for a variety of reasons, but more and more so. And I hate to say that, but it is definitely something that's increasing.
Yeah, I think kadi kadi like sade young youth samajhdi hai koi problem hai te 1 2 3 I can't do this anymore, right? I think a lot of our parents and older individuals, and even now some people patience rakhte ne, koshish karte ne, you know, like you have to keep working at it. Like marriage is not going to be what you see in the movies every day. It's not Hollywood or Bollywood, right? It's work, and it's patience, and it's adjustment. Of course, I'm not talking about abuse or verbal, physical, or, you know, mental abuse or any kind of cheating. But if you have just differences in opinion or understanding, and you can try to just have patience and work together, right?
Absolutely. And I think, you know, in the olden days, you were sort of almost like, you know, stuck with each other and you had to make things work. Nowadays, you know, I feel like the try sometimes, you know, doesn't go as far as it should.
Right.
In making those happen. And sometimes, you know, honestly, you may think a person is a certain way, and then it turns out not to be that case.
Right,
which,
right.
Then you should get divorced. Yeah.
But sometimes patients come to me, right? Because I'm a psychiatrist, as everyone knows here. And they're like, you know, we're having trouble in our marriage, and someone will say, I want a divorce, or I hate this person, blah, 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 blah. I always tell the couple, when they come to me, and I have therapists, marriage counselors who work in my private practice, I always tell them, don't rush to make a decision. Slowly, slow it down, you know? Sometimes when you give something time, it can either get much better or much worse. So, you know, that's something I tell people. But another question for you I have is, आजकल COVID है, COVID and weddings. I mean, आजकल limits लगाई हुई हैं, like you can only have 25, you can only have 50. And I want to hear about that. But somebody asked me to do Sangeet over Zoom. And because I sing, everyone knows Biba sings, right? So, and they're like, Biba, can you perform a whole Sangeet over Zoom? And I'm like, yeah, I guess I can, but how would that work, right? So it was kind of like, wow. But tell me about weddings and COVID, and we don't know how long it's gonna last, you know? So what are people doing, and how are you dealing with it? So tell us about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, COVID, it's, you know, unfortunately just a terrible time in the world right now for many different people. But as far as weddings, most people have had to reschedule their weddings to next year and the year after even. And, you know, the size of weddings has diminished greatly. So some people are still trying to keep their original wedding dates and do smaller weddings. And the nice thing about that is that it's, you know, extremely intimate, sometimes just the immediate family even, and they're really doing the ceremony really just for them. It's just about the love, just about the couple, and, you know, if they are able to invite a few more guests, depending on the capacity in, you know, each different state, they're getting to do things that you don't ordinarily get to do at a large South Asian wedding. And so when you have 500 people, it may become difficult or too costly to do things like lavish meal service, or, you know, the other day I saw one of my brides, she did a small intimate wedding in her backyard with just her parents and siblings, which is really beautiful. She got to wear a white dress, a white wedding dress, which you don't do in the Indian
weddings, right?
And she actually had a live ceremony painter.
Wow.
Which, you know, and we've had, you know, people do that in their weddings before, but
what is a live ceremony painter? I think I know, but
so it's basically an artist painter who comes on site, and they actually paint your ceremony live while it's happening.
That's cool.
So when you're doing like fere or something, they're actually painting it on the screen.
Wow.
And in all those paintings, you see like all the people that are also in the wedding. So you see all the heads of people on the sides.
That's so cool.
But in hers, which was really nice, it was just the couple. Like there was nobody else there, and I was actually like surprised, like how beautiful. Yeah, absolutely. So like doing like really fun things that you can't do in these larger guest counts is a really nice way to kind of celebrate having the wedding itself. And having something a little bit more substantial to it.
I feel like COVID, for some people, was like, oh my God, a great excuse for me not to spend all this money. Like, now I don't need to do it. But for some people, it's also like, oh man, I really wanted my uncles and aunts and grandparents and cousins. And how else are they doing it? Like, what other things are you seeing creatively? And how are you helping? Because obviously you're still working.
Trying to work. You know, most of the weddings, unfortunately, because they want their family and friends to come, it's, you know, it was important for them to reschedule those. But the ones who are trying to do it now, and you know, just to get married and, you know, move forward with their lives, you know, we're working closely with all the vendors, with the facilities, to make sure we take all the COVID protocol that's necessary. Everything from temperature taking, making sure people aren't sick, getting all the vendors tested prior to. Wearing face masks when it's required, and you know, I think adding a little bit of fun to that atmosphere is really important. So the DJ gets involved, teaches Bhangra social distance style, you know, as opposed to just going up or also going sideways.
Nice.
You know, and sort of making it a little bit more fun and not just so, you know, everything's so COVID and you know, dismal.
Right. That's really cool. Vaishali, thank you so much. I mean, you've just amazing stuff you do. You're an inspiration. You're an entrepreneur. You've done some beautiful work. I obviously follow you and see all the weddings you've done. But I also want to mention, you don't only do weddings, you do events. So baby showers, bridal showers, engagements, sangeets, birthdays. You do a lot. So where can people find you?
So they can reach me via my website, Instagram, any place that's...
And what is it? Can you tell us? It's going to be displayed, but let's tell our audience.
Sure. On my website, eventsbyvaishali.com, or they can reach me by through my Instagram or Facebook, any other social media form.
So it's Vaishali, Events by Vaishali, Vaishali Deshpande if they search for you.
Yes.
Okay, and I'm going to tag you in Dr. Biba Singh. You can follow me on Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, everywhere, wherever you can find me. And I'm going to definitely be putting Vaishali's information up. Thank you. We look forward to seeing a lot more of your stuff, and it was a pleasure having you today.
Thank you so much, Biba. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Vaishali.
Thank you.